Therefore, when we are talking about the unification of the Caribbean, we are also in the same breath talking about the unification of Africa. And therefore, the Caribbean and those on mainland, they all must say in one voice, we are Africans. So I think going forward, if someone asks me, which country do you come from? We all need to start say, I am from Africa. Because as long as we still talk along the borders of Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, Somalia, Ghana, Bissau, Nigeria, Algeria, Ethiopia, South Africa, Botswana, Lesotho, we are still falling in the same trap of glorifying the very same colonial borders that divide us. Therefore, we should start off by just making it. I mean, you are in New York City, and then you meet this American bigoted person who asks you, "Oh, where are you from?" Then you say, "I'm from Africa." And they say, "Oh, do you know I have a friend who comes from Ghana? Do you know him?" Right? Okay. If you know Africa like I do, and you tell someone that you are from Zimbabwe, or you tell someone that you are from Mozambique, and they are asking you about a friend that they have who is coming from Ghana. Now, it already tells you the amount of ignorance that is in that head space. That for them to think that Ghana and Zambia, Nigeria and Lesotho are like a stone throw away from each other already tells you the amount of ignorance that is harbored in those kind of minds. So maybe going forward, we need to firstly refuse that we are not Zimbabweans, we are not Zambians, we are not Malawians, because these were Rhodesians, and the Rhodesians are a product of Cecil John Rhodes, who then calls these places after his own name. And by saying we are Rhodesians or we are Zimbabweans, we are allowing these tribal theories to supersede our national identity. Our national identity is African. You are not Zambian, you are not Zimbabwean, you are not South African, you are African. Because Africa is one big country which makes it into a continent.
What Joshua MAPONGA spoke in this speech is definitely true, because there's no borders in Europe. There's no borders in Europe. You can have a tea in Italy, then lunch in London. That is too easy for them to travel from within their continent from one place to another. Joshua MAPONGA said that we need to remove these visas, this passport in our own continent, because it seems that to move from one river to another river have a difficult time for an African to get passport and visa. I mean to move from one country to another, once they say they move from one river to another, because these rivers and these borders were brought by these colonizers for their own interest. These borders, there is no interest that we get from this border. This border is for the interest of these colonials, because they are afraid to unite. They are afraid to for Africans to be united. The unity of Africa is a threat to them. That's why they always keep these borders. They keep their own peoples to maintain the existence of borders. Which people is our leaders? Some of our leaders are puppets of this Western colonizer, and all we know that. So their main role sometimes is to make these borders exist, because if there is no borders, it will be difficult for them to exploit what they need to exploit from our continent. So in other though, we can say Africa, in order to achieve our agendas, firstly, let us move these borders. And to move these borders is a sign of unity of Africa, a sign of uniting of Africa. this will be great to achieve these agendas. Sometimes you may think that these leaders who are saying that we have to achieve this agenda 2063, how can we achieve these agendas if till now we are not united? I believe that if we unite this time, we'll have the common agendas. So we don't have a common agenda, but we have goals. We don't have a common way. How can we achieve these agendas of this agenda of 2063 if we don't have the way to achieve this agenda 63 till now, because we are not united? You see, every African leaders have no this idea to be under someone else in this continent right now, because if we want to unite, this president of all African country will be united and have one president who rule all the continent of Africa. One bank, one common language, one currency, and so on. So on such thing, they don't want to unite. Good example there in South Africa. 3 parties, ANC, EFF, and this newly formed MK party. These are 3 brothers, black brothers. Let us ask ourselves, if they have a common agenda or the common idea to make the better South Africa, why don't they join together? Why don't they join their forces and make this happen in a real time? But there is no room of them to sit and discuss about Africa. Everyone about South Africa. Everyone stay in his own party and discuss with their colleagues. So this is just an example. So let us Africa remove these borders to make the Africa we want, because we will have free movement of goods, people, and services. Another example is we launch Continental Free Trade Area. Till now, there's no this what we want, what we expect it to be once we launch this Continental Free Trade Area, because there's a conflict in DRC Congo, and people from Tanzania want to sell their goods in maybe a country next to Congo. And the only way to pass to that his destination is through Congo. So how can he pass there, the place where there's a war? That can't be, because he's going to risk his life and his goods too. So there's no way we can achieve this free movement, continental free trade area, if they still have conflict in Africa, some parties in Africa. And this happens because we are not united. Let us, a good example, which I always appreciate, these 3 brothers from West Africa there. They form their own region, Sahel region. They have the common agenda of their countries. That's why they join together. This Ibrahim Traore, Assimi Goita, and Chiani. They are joined together to make their agendas too easy. And we see in Burkina Faso have now started to build a new, gold refining plant. So this is what we expect to see in every country in Africa, that Africans must unite and have the same vision of our continent. Sometimes these things may not happen because every country in Africa has its own agenda to make a better future of his own countries. So once we come into the African Union, the only thing we discuss is helpless to the countries. So this is the thought I want to share with you, fellow brothers and sisters. Let us remove these borders. This is the call to all African and African in diaspora. So please share this video to many Africans as you can, to many brothers as you can, and together we can make this happen. And those who may lead this struggle is our leaders, but in other hands we see our leaders have their different view on our continent. Not all, some of them. So we can't join, we can't unite if other leaders are still under colonial rule, or still have the interest of not their citizens but to the masters. Thank you. Welcome again.
When I was in the Caribbean space, with all the challenges that we went through, both the beautiful spaces, the celebration, and the tears that we suffered at the hands of our own brothers and sisters who are in the Caribbean. And by no ways and no means are the struggles of the Caribbean by any chance different from the struggles of Africa as a whole. We here on the continent, we are also still required to get visas from one river to another river, from one country to another country. Africa, since it was divided into the colonial boundaries, the colonial boundaries came with the colonial languages to create on the African continent the Francophones. Those are the countries that were colonized by the French, the Portugal also colonized some countries. Germany also colonized some certain countries. And the British, the Anglo-Saxons, also colonized some certain countries. And so therefore Africa is not just divided amongst the Africans, but it is also divided amongst the Europeans. And the wars, the segregation, the division of the Europeans were filtered to become the wars of the African. That if you were colonized by the British, you are also supposed to hate the French the same way the British hate the French. And if you were colonized by the French, you are supposed to hate the British the way the French hate the British. And before you realize it, we are fighting battles that do not belong to us.